Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be getting started shortly here. We'll start at the top of the hour. In the meantime, I just have some intro questions up on the screen. They're completely anonymous. Feel free to answer those if you'd like. We're just curious about y'all as readers. Welcome, welcome. For those of you just coming in, we'll get started shortly. Just wanted to give everyone a few moments to get comfortable. We're going to start off with some intro questions. They're up on the screen already. They're completely anonymous. Feel free to fill those out if you'd like. All right, and we are at the 10 o'clock mark. So I am just going to get us started here. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our Learning Libby with the Experts. Today is our Getting Started portion of the series. Today, we are excited to introduce you to the library reading app Libby, everything from downloading and signing in all the way through everything you need to know for your day-to-day life within Libby. This morning, we are going to take you through all of those getting started pieces, and then we'll wrap up with a mini quiz and some time for questions at the end, or some questions on screen. Of course, you can ask them throughout. Now, I am going to close our intro poll, and I guess we'll start with introducing ourselves. So my name is Joe, and I'm here from Overdrive. You may have heard of the Overdrive app before. You may have even used it, but we are now moving forward with Libby. So this is a great opportunity to meet her and see how that app works. We took all of the feedback from years of Overdrive users and used that to build Libby from the ground up. So really designed with you in mind. Now at Overdrive, I'm a part of the digital bookmobile team. So we have a truck that goes across the US and Canada when we're not staying safe at home, visiting different libraries and schools, and we help people just like yourselves get started. I'm here with the other half of the team.
Hello, good morning. My name is Marissa. As Joe mentioned, I'm the other half of the digital bookmobile team. So his job is typically staying back in Cleveland and doing a bit of the desk work of our job. So managing our budget, planning our tour route, things like that. And then I get to travel with our digital bookmobile across the US and Canada and help people learn how to use Libby. So in my 3 years at Overdrive, I've helped thousands of people learn how to use the Libby app. And I'm really excited to be here today to help you learn the basics of Libby.
We are super excited to be here. Before we dive in, I do have to just cover some of the housekeeping items, some things we want you to be aware of in this Zoom webinar. So we do have closed captions enabled. They should be appearing on your screen already, but if you need to turn those on or off, or adjust them to your liking, just look for the button that says CC in your Zoom meeting controls, and that will allow you to make those adjustments. You can also ask Marissa and I questions throughout the entire webinar. Just use the Q&A feature. Also in those Zoom meeting controls, type out your question and our answer will pop up. If one of us is talking or presenting, the other will be responding. You can also ask questions anonymously if that makes you more comfortable. I'll be answering while Marissa's presenting kind of throughout the majority of this presentation, but I may also bring up some questions to be answered live in that time that we have saved at the end to show things off directly in the app. So just keep in mind, we might even show off the answer to your question live. Now, we are recording our session this morning. We do it for a variety of reasons, but mainly so you have something to refer back to. We want to make sure that, if you want to see something again, you could pull up this video. If you need to hop off early for any reason or a distraction pops up at home, of course, you won't miss out anything we covered. You'll get an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes a link to the full recording of this webinar. Also with that will be a link to our Getting Started with Libby PDF, which includes short video clips of all of the basics that Marissa's covering today. So if you don't want to rewatch that whole video, you just need a reminder of one quick piece, you can use that PDF instead. Also, feel free to share the recording and the PDF with family and friends, anyone who you think would benefit from meeting Libby. Now, since we are providing all of these great materials to reference back to, we recommend that you just watch as we go through our getting started presentation here. Just try to take it all in, ask questions as they pop up, instead of trying to follow along within the app. We don't want anyone to get lost. And since you can refer back to it, we recommend going that route instead. Help us improve our webinar by filling out our survey. This will pop up in your web browser when you leave the webinar. And then lastly, we'll both be connecting iPads into the webinar today. Sometimes when we do this, Zoom shrinks the display that you can see. Doesn't happen to everyone, but if it happens to you, it only takes a few simple clicks to correct. We'll be sharing that in the chat. If for some reason you don't see those steps in the chat, just ask a question for the steps to fix the ratio, and we'll get those answers to you. All right, all that boring stuff out of the way. Big exhale there. And now let's dive in. I'm going to get my iPad connected here, and I'm going to take you through the download and sign in process. Now, as I mentioned, Marissa and I are both using iPads today, but the Libby app is available to download on a variety of devices. So you can use it on any Apple mobile device, like an iPhone or an iPad. Then, of course, you also have so many different Android options. There are so many Androids. I usually tend to think of only like Samsung and Google Pixel. Those are what come to mind. But if it's your typical Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store and download Libby there as well. Now, if you are someone who likes to use a computer, doesn't matter if it's a PC or a Mac, doesn't matter if it's a desktop or a laptop, there's no app to download on a computer. All you'll go to is libbyapp.com, and you can have the same experience as the app directly in your web browser. All right, well, now I'm all connected, so let's just go ahead and download that app or show you the steps if you're using a mobile device, and then we'll get signed in. So first, you'll need to go into your App Store. If you are on an Apple device, it's that blue App Store icon. Androids are the Google Play Store. It's a multicolored play button or triangle. And then once you're in the App Store, we'll head over, look for that search box or magnifying glass, and we're just going to type in Libby. So I like to go Libby. Then I ignore the search results that are the suggestions that pop up and just hit enter or search in my keyboard. Because when I do this, Libby is going to be one of the top results that pops up for me. We're looking for this maroon app, and it should say Libby by Overdrive. Now, the Libby app is completely free to use and download. There are no costs. You just need the app and a library card. And once again, everything is free. Cannot stress that enough. So you'll just tap on Get or Install. That will show up next to where it says Libby by Overdrive. Give the app a moment to download, and then you can leave the App Store and go into that freshly downloaded app. Now, before we dive into the Libby app, I just wanted to mention, make sure, even though Libby is free, that you have your device passwords handy in case you need to sign into the App Store. Everyone's settings are a little different, so it wouldn't hurt to make sure you know your App Store password. Now, when you're opening Libby for the very first time, she'll have a few questions for you to help you find your library and get signed in with your card. Once we have answered all these questions the very first time, Libby will remember our info so we can dive right back into whatever we were reading or listening. So our first question here, do you have a library card? I'll say yes. And now we need to find our library location. So when you're getting your very first device set up, I recommend using Search for a Library. And we'll tap into this in just a minute. I wanted to let you all know about this option though, copy from another device. If you're like me and you plan to use Libby on a few devices, maybe you've got a smartphone and a computer you want to use, or a tablet you want to use, you'll get one device all set up with Search for a Library. But then when you're ready to set up that second or third device, you can use copy from another device, and it'll be a quick shortcut for you. Pull all of your info in from your first device. So while the first one may take you a little bit of time to set up, any additional devices will be nice and fast. So just save that for later. All right, we're going to tap into search for a library. And I like this option because I can search by the name of my library, the city I live in, or my zip code. And I'm going to type in the zip. There we go. And the result I'm looking for is right at the top here. So East Hampton, Emily Williston Memorial Library. You might see the name of the library that you go to. You might be seeing a different address or name here. What's most important that you're looking for the very first time you sign in is this name right up top, C.W. Mars. That's the name of your library's digital collection that all of the physical locations share access to. So many physical branches are all sharing one digital library. So make sure you're seeing C.W. Mars, and we'll tap that box to choose it. And now we're almost done. We just need to tap on where it says sign in with my card. And then now, here is where we need to make sure we select once again, C.W. Mars Patrons. That's our home library. And then you'll type in your library card number and your PIN. Now your card number is going to appear on the library card, usually under a barcode. Enter just the card number only, no dashes or spaces. And then you'll tap on next, and then enter your PIN or your password. Now, if you don't know your PIN, just reach out to your library. They are the ones who kind of manage all of that library card data. You know, they keep it handy for you. And if for some reason you don't know it or need to reset it, they'll be the ones who are able to help. But it looks like I typed all that in even though I was talking. So here we go. I've got my card entered. I see I can borrow up to 10 ebooks and audiobooks at a time, and I can place a hold on up to 10. To wrap up, we'll tap on next. And now we have access to our library's complete collection of ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, and extras. This is where I get to hand it over to Marissa. She is going to take us through the basics of the Libby app, everything you need to know for your day-to-day life. Marissa will be using a demo library from Overdrive for this portion. We do this just so we don't place a hold on anything you might want to borrow. We don't mess up your waiting lines at all. But everything functions exactly the same. You might see some different logos or some different titles on the screen, but like I said, doesn't matter what library you're in, all of the buttons work exactly the same. So Marissa, I'll hand it over to you, and I'll be hanging out in the Q&A if anyone has any questions.
All right, thank you, Joe. So before I get started with talking about all of the basics in Libby, I do want to give a final reminder about the zoom ratio. This is where it really matters the most that you see my entire screen. So down at the bottom of my screen right now, you should see 5 icons within the navigation bar. There's search, library, menu, shelf, and timeline. So if you cannot see that navigation bar with those icons, then Joe did just put in directions in the chat. And that's just a couple of clicks within Zoom that you should be able to fix how your screen is viewed, and you'll be able to follow along with me so much easier today. So I just wanted to give that final reminder there before I started. Now, we are going to talk about all of those icons down in that navigation bar throughout the presentation, but we're going to start with the library icon. It is the second icon that you see within the navigation bar. Looks like a little library building, says library underneath. And the library icon is what you're going to tap on when you want to browse your library's entire collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. Now, you'll hear me say the word browse when I talk about the library icon a lot. It's going to get repetitive, but that's because I want you to think of this library icon the same way you would if you were to walk into the physical library, not knowing what you're looking for, and just browsing around the shelves to see if something sparks your interest. So as we browse around the library, up at the top of the screen, there are some filters that you can use. These are a really great place to go when you want to start browsing the collection. If you tap on Just Added, that's going to be a list of titles that were recently purchased by the library. They're brand new to your library's collection. Available Now is a great place to start if you want a book right away and don't want to join a waiting list. Say you walked into the doctor's office and they're taking a long time and you're like, I need to borrow something right now during my wait. That's when that Available Now filter will come in handy. And then lastly, we have subjects. And this is one of the most popular ways to browse for a book. We saw in our entry poll, there was a mystery lover. We had some romance readers. If you have a specific subject or genre that you like to read in, then you can tap into subjects here and then choose that subject from a list. And then Libby's going to give you all of the books that fall under that subject. So those filters are a great place to start while you browse, but you can also start scrolling down that library page and you'll come across a section that is labeled Guides. Now, guides do differ from library to library, so yours aren't going to look exactly like mine do. You do have kids and teens. You also have a magazines guide. That is the easiest way to find and borrow magazines. And then you have a mystery thriller guide. What guides are a way that the library can curate collections that are specific to your library. So, and it's based by a specific criteria. So in the kids and teens instance, that's going to be curated collections by age group. By magazines, that will be format, and then mystery and thriller will be by subject. And it's just so the library has a quick, easy way for you to find books that fall into those categories. Now, as we continue to scroll down the screen, that's when you're going to start to see just general curated collections that your library puts together for you. These curated collections are a lot like in the physical library when you walk in during the summer and you see an end cap that's displaying beach reads, and then you go back in the winter and that end cap has switched over to holiday recipe books or cozy mysteries. So these curated collections are going to change all of the time. They're going to be rotating throughout the year. The library is always going to be curating something new and popping it in so that you can explore that. So like I said, that library icon is where you go when you want to browse your library's collection. You don't know exactly what you're looking for when you're at the library. You are just seeing what they have available through their filters, through their guides, and their curated collections. Now, in the instances where you do know exactly what you're looking for, you can come over to the first icon in that navigation bar instead. That is the magnifying glass, and it says search. And this is where you can search for something specific. So this could be an author, a title, a magazine, or a series name. Any of those will work. I'm going to type in The Plot. That is the title of a new mystery thriller. I've typed in my keyword here, and now I'm just going to go down into the keyboard and tap on search. And you can see the book that I was looking for has populated at the top of this list. Now, while we're in this list, there are two things that I want to point out for you. The first is going to be how you can visually tell the difference between an ebook and an audiobook. So I point this out because libraries do purchase those formats separately. And what that means is you can't borrow an audiobook and then switch it over into an ebook so you can read it instead. You have to borrow it in the format that you wish to read or listen to it in. So if you're looking for an audiobook, you'll see a set of headphones, the duration, so how long you're going to be listening to that, And then it's going to be a square jacket cover. 3 visual indicators there to know that that is a book that you'll listen to. The ebook version instead has a rectangular jacket cover, so it more closely resembles a book in its shape, and that is how you know that that's going to be a book that you read instead of listen to. Now, in addition to the difference between an ebook and an audiobook, I also want to point out the difference between books that are available to borrow right away and books that you'll have to place a hold and join that waiting list for. So the audiobook version here, we can see that it says place hold next to that jacket cover. That means there's currently someone listening to every copy that the library owns, and you'll have to join the waiting list first. And that's a really simple process, actually. All you have to do is tap on place hold. Libby will take you to the confirmation page here, and she'll even give you an approximation of how long it'll take before it's your turn on the waiting list. And then you can confirm that you'd like to place the hold by tapping that big maroon button there. And that's when Libby will confirm that you've placed the hold. Then we're going to have a few options for what to do next. And typically, if I'm placing holds, that means I haven't found the book that I want to borrow right now. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on Keep Browsing. And you'll see that just jumps us right back to the same list that we were looking at. So we didn't lose our place. And we see that the audiobook version is now on my hold shelf with about a 2-week wait. If you'd like to borrow a book and it is available to borrow right now, it will say borrow right next to that jacket cover. We could go ahead and tap borrow here if we wanted. If we knew what this book is about, we knew we wanted to borrow it, we could do that. But let's say a friend recommended this to us and we're not sure what the book is about yet. That's when we can tap on the jacket cover itself and we'll get to view the details. So we'll get to read that back jacket cover information here. And if we decide we do want to move forward and borrow this book, we have that same borrow button on this screen as well, right underneath the jacket cover. So I'll go ahead and tap borrow here. And this brings us to the borrowing confirmation page. Now, up at the top of the screen, you'll see that we're borrowing the plot for 14 days. 14 days is the default lending period at your library, but you can tap on that 14-day button there that's underlined, and you can switch this to 21 days if you'd like to keep that book for 3 weeks instead. And once you change your lending period, that will become your default lending period for that format moving forward. So you'll have to do this once for ebooks, once for audiobooks, and once for magazines. And then moving forward, Libby will remember that you want those formats for whatever time period you chose. And then titles do return automatically on their due date, so you don't have to worry about late fees. Now, I'm going to come down to that big maroon button. I'm going to confirm that I want to borrow that book. And now we can see that Libby is downloading this title for offline use. Libby does this automatically when you're on Wi-Fi. And as soon as you get that little library card with the check mark on it, that means you can take this book anywhere you'd like, whether you have Wi-Fi or cell service at all, and you'll still be able to open and enjoy your book. So a nice feature there. I use it a lot when I'm flying. All right, so now I'm going to come down. I'm going to tap on Open Book. And now Libby's asking me, do I want to read this book directly in the Libby app, or do I want to send the ebook over to a Kindle device? If you have a Kindle device that you prefer to read on, like a Kindle Paperwhite, for example, then you can choose Kindle here. And Libby will prompt you to sign into your Amazon account to finish getting the book. So I don't do this live because it requires me to sign into my Amazon account, but this is an option available to you. And I show you all these steps in a short video within that PDF that you'll receive tomorrow. So don't worry, if you do want to see this process, you will have a video that you can watch in that PDF. Today, while we're live, I'm going to go into Libby and show you a few of Libby's key reading features here. So when you open a book in Libby, you'll have menus up at the top and the bottom of the screen. And Libby is counting some pages right now, but we will see our reading progress right here. I'm on page 1 of 514. To drop these menus off the screen so we can begin reading, all we have to do is a quick tap of the finger directly in the center of the screen, and they drop away. Then we can start paging forward by tapping or swiping or clicking if you're on a computer. And I'm going to move until I get a big chunk of text here. There we go. I'll go one more page. And I want to show you how you can customize your ebook's appearance to meet your own individual reading needs. This is one of the reasons I love digital reading so much. I love physical books too, but the perk of digital reading is that you can have every book be a large print book, or you can change the background color of the page to make it easier on your eyes. So I'd like to show you how to do that. What I'm going to do is quick tap in the center of the screen. This will bring the menus back up. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the A icon. That A stands for appearance. So anytime you see that A icon, that is going to bring up your appearance menu. The first thing that you can change within your appearance is the text scale. So if you use this slider here, you can increase or decrease your font size. Next, we have lighting. I'm currently in bright mode, that is Libby's default, but you have sepia and this dark mode available to you as well. Dark mode's my favorite. It's really great for reading at night, so you're not, have that shiny, bright screen right in your face while you're reading. And then lastly, we have book design. Now, book design is just Libby's fancy way of saying font style. So these are the different font styles that you can put Libby into. I like to point out this open dyslexic font style because it may help some users with dyslexia while reading. Now, I'm going to change that back to my default before I close this menu. Those are the 3 ways that you can change your reading appearance: the text scale, the size of the font, the background color, so the background the book is in, and then the book design, the font the book is displayed in. And I put these all back to my default before closing the menu because these settings are sticky. And what I mean by a sticky setting is you're only going to have to come in and adjust your appearance one time per device, and then Libby's going to remember those customizations for you, and you'll just start getting your books delivered from the library through Libby with those customizations in place. So it's nice, you don't have to keep coming back into this menu and making those adjustments. I'm going to drop this menu off the screen. Anytime you have a menu like this, you just tap above it or below it, and that will drop it away. And then I'm going to leave this ebook and we're going to pop into an audiobook to talk about a few things there. So I'm going to tap the very center of the screen. That brings my menus back up. I know sometimes I repeat myself, but reinforcement can be a benefit to us here. I'm going to tap the back button up in the top left-hand corner. This back button you're going to see in ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. This is how you leave any of those formats. I feel a sneeze coming on, so I'm going to mute so I don't do it in your ears. That sneeze psyched me out. I did need a sneeze. Okay. All right. So I left that ebook and now I'm on my shelf. And this is where I want to reorient everyone. So let's go down to the bottom of the screen here. The first thing I'm going to point out is this bar across the right-hand side. This is the now reading bar. So the very last book that you had open in Libby is going to appear here. You can tap on that bar. It's going to open your book right back up to the last spot you were at. I'm going to dismiss that for now so that we can see the full navigation bar. And let's just review what we've covered already before we move forward. The first thing we did was tap on the library icon. That library building is where we go to browse. So you could use the filters that were at the top. We could use the guides, and then we could see the curated collections that the library puts together and rotate throughout the year. Remember, when we're at the library, we're browsing because we don't know exactly what we're looking for. We're seeing what the library has to offer. Then we went over to the search icon, and that's where we searched for something specific. So this could be a title, an author, a magazine, or a series name. We're now over on the shelf. That is the fourth icon that you see in the navigation bar. Looks like a little stack of books there. It says shelf underneath. And your shelf is going to be where you find all of your loans and your holds. So up at the top of the shelf here, we see filters if we want to specifically look at our loans or we want to check out our holds. And then we also have tags. Tags are something that I talk about in the deep dive, our tips and tricks session, which we're having tomorrow from 10 to 11. So if you'd like to see some tips and tricks with Libby as well, you can attend that session. And then right on the main page of the shelf, you'll see your loans and they'll be organized by the last time you open them. So here's that book I just borrowed with you. And then as I make my way down the screen, we can see some other books that I've borrowed earlier. And I'm going to open up my audiobook here. I promised to talk about a few things in here. So the reading progress for the audiobook is going to show up at the top. I'm 13% of the way through, about 50 minutes in, with almost 6 hours left to go. Down at the bottom of the screen is where we find the player. So when you're ready to begin listening, you just tap on play. That will start the narrator. Now, I can hear Matthew McConaughey's sweet voice in my ears, but you should just be able to hear my voice instead, which is disappointing for you. But what I want to talk about with the audiobook experience is that audiobooks in Libby are designed to play in the background of your device. And what that means is you can come into Libby, open your audiobook, tap on play, and then you can minimize the Libby app and start online shopping. You could put your device's screen to sleep and start doing dishes or gardening. And Libby will continue to play your audiobook in the background of your device so that you can multitask. Now, with that in mind, what I want you to remember to do is when you're done listening to your audiobook during that time, come back into Libby and tap on pause, and that will stop the audiobook. So that pause button acts as our stop button, and then you can move on with your day without having to worry about losing your place. There were more than a few times on the bookmobile where I saw someone just turn their volume down on their device and think, well, if I can't hear it, it's probably not playing anymore. And that's not the case. So make sure you come in and you tap on pause. I just want to quickly touch on two icons up at the top of the screen here. This speedometer is your playback speed. This will allow you to choose how slowly or quickly your narrator is talking. I'm partial to 1.25, but you can choose whatever works for you. And then we also have this crescent moon. This is a sleep timer. This is really great if you like to listen to your audiobooks in bed, but you have a habit of falling asleep and without pausing. You can always set a timer for when that audiobook will stop playing. End of chapter is a really nice one. This is going to change the time depending on how long is left in the chapter. All right. Now I'm going to leave this audiobook. You'll remember I said that back button up in the top left-hand corner is how we leave all of our books. I'm going to tap on that, and that's taken me back to the shelf. Let's reorient down at the bottom of the screen again here. I want to point out that this now reading bar has changed. It went from my ebook to my audiobook, and that's because it's always the last book that you had open in the Libby app. I'm going to dismiss that again. And we're going to talk about the timeline next. So first, I want to make this very clear that your shelf is current. These are your current loans, so you're actively within your lending period. You have those books borrowed from your library, or you're actively on the holds list, waiting for that book. Right next door, you see the timeline. It's the clock icon. This is your history. So equate timeline and history. This is everything that you've ever loaned out, ever placed on hold, renewed, or returned. So I want to make that clear. Shelf is current. They're currently sitting on your bookshelf. You can pick them up off there and read, or you're waiting on them, and your timeline is your history. That's everything that you've ever borrowed. We're going to finish off the demonstration in the menu. It's the very center of the navigation bar. Your menu, you can think of as your app settings if you'd like, or your account settings. So up at the top of the menu, the first thing you'll see are any of your in-app notifications. So right now, Libby's letting me know I have a new issue of one of my favorite magazines, Rolling Stone. It was added to the library. I'm going to dismiss this. I'm just taking my finger and swiping it to the left, and you can see it's disappeared off my screen, and now I can manage my notifications. I want to pop in here just to show you a few things. So the first thing I want to talk about is how you can be notified. These are alerts about important events in Libby. There are 3 ways you can be notified. By default, Libby will have you set to the blue notification option. This is a push notification, and push notifications appear on your device's screen regardless if you have Libby open or not, just like a text message does. So a really nice option there. You can switch your notifications over to a menu badge if you'd like. That is an in-app notification. That means you have to open up Libby to see it. It will not appear outside of the Libby app. And you did just get to see what that looked like. I swiped it to the left. It's that in that box in the menu, and it only appears inside of Libby. Of course, there is an ignore option as well. In addition to the ways that you can be notified, you'll also find all of the things you can be notified about. And I want to talk to you quickly about Hold Ready. I really recommend that you keep this notification set to the blue push notification option. And the reason I recommend that is because when it's your turn on a waiting list, Libby gives you a 3-day period to take action. That book will be sitting in limbo during that 3 days. And the 3 actions that you can take are to borrow the book, to cancel the hold, or to have the hold delivered later. If you're not ready for it, you don't have time to read, you can deliver the book later and stay at the top of the waiting list. Now, if you don't take one of those actions in that 3-day period, The first time, Libby's just going to give you another 3-day period. So she'll deliver the book later and give you a second 3-day period to take action. If in the second 3-day period you don't take action again, that's when Libby will cancel your hold. So you'll have to go find the book again. You'll have to rejoin the wait list. That puts you at the bottom. And so it can really ruin your day. It's ruined mine a couple of times. If you've waited 5 weeks and then you have to wait another 5 weeks because you're not taking action. So I want to point that out. I recommend Hold Ready is set to your blue push notification option so that you're getting alerted even if you don't open Libby up. All right, I'm going to tap on back here. That's going to take us back to the main Libby menu. And right underneath the notifications, you'll see your libraries. Now, I have 3 library cards attached here in Libby, and that's because you can add as many libraries as you'd like in Libby as long as you have a valid library card and that library uses Libby services. Now, in Massachusetts, you're extremely lucky because with your single library card, you have access to 8 total digital collections, all of the digital collections across your state. It's unlike any other state that is in the US, where Joe and I are wildly jealous of you. And I want to show you how you can add those additional library cards. Because what happens when you add additional library cards is you have more books to choose from. Each library determines what they purchase for their own collection. So some collections look different than others, and a larger library might purchase more copies of a certain title than a smaller library. So holds list might vary as well. So let's go ahead and show you the steps to add those additional 8 libraries. I'm going to come down to Add Library. And this page should look familiar. We saw Joe using it at the beginning. We can type in our library name, our city, or our zip. I want you to just type in Massachusetts instead. Because when you type in Massachusetts, other than the Massachusetts Teachers Association, unless you are a teacher and a part of that association, the additional collections that you see within this list are all going to be the collections you have access to. So you can start at the top of that list. Again, we'll skip the Teachers Association. So we're going to start with Old Colony. I'll tap on it here. When I get to this page, I will tap Sign In with my card. And then I'm going to come down to partner libraries because we're not actually a part of Old Colony. We're a part of CW Mars. So I need to come down to partner libraries, tap on 15 more, and we're going to find CW Mars almost at the bottom of the list here. And now we're just going to type in that same library card number that we used to sign in to our original collection, that CW Mars collection. And again, I know Joe mentioned this, but if you ever have trouble with your PIN or password, go ahead and call your library. They'll help you figure that out. And then we're going to tap Sign In. I didn't type it in correctly. Must be my pen. Joe is like 1,000 times better at talking and typing than I am. Here we go. Okay, I'm not going to waste any more time doing that. Oh, Joe said capital D. Okay, we're being picky here, Libby. So here we go. So it wasn't that I couldn't talk and type at the same time. It's because I had bad punctuation. All right, now we'll tap Sign In. There we go. Thanks, Joe. All right, so we see our library card here appear on the screen. I'm going to hit Next. And now we can see I'm signed into Old Colony Library Network. I have access to that collection. Now I'm going to go back to menu here. And you'll see that it's been added to my libraries. Now I've been talking about my digital library. That's the library I've been using to show you. So if I want to switch back to that, I just tap in my menu there and I'm visiting that collection now instead. So that's how you can switch between all of your collections, is tapping on them in your list under your libraries. Now you'll go ahead and add all 8 of those. So you'll have to follow those steps again and again. But what's nice is after the first device, you set all of those 8 collections into your libraries in Libby. You can then use that quick setup code to transfer those over to your second or third device. Now, I'm going to finish off talking about help and support here. So first, I want to talk about the settings down at the bottom in help and support. In settings, you can find that code for copying your library cards over to a new device. You can also find accessibility features and things like that. But I want to show you the customized navigation menu. Within your navigation menu, you'll be able to turn on the labels for your icons. So you can see mine are turned on right now. That's why you can see all of the labels within my navigation bar. By default, Libby has these toggled off. So I really recommend, especially when you're new, it can help to have those labels. And so I would toggle those on if you want a little bit easier of an experience. And I do have a video in that PDF showing you the steps for this. So if you didn't want to watch this full recording, but you wanted to watch how to turn on the labeled icons, you can reference that PDF video. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to actually hit back twice. The first time it takes me to my settings. The second time it takes me to that Libby menu, the main menu. And we're going to finish off, get some help. So there are a couple ways you can find help with Libby. You have 15 minutes to ask Joe and I whatever you'd like. There are no stupid questions in the Q&A. You can always go to your library, call your library, email, chat your library, and they can help you as well. Then within Libby, you have 2 ways. The first is, I call this a self-guided help, because we're asking the computer, Libby, the computer, a question, or we're just typing in a keyword, and then the computer is just going to search through the help site and try to find relevant articles for you. So let's say I want to know how to return a book early. Titles return automatically on their due date, but maybe I finished way early and I want to get it to that next person in line. I typed in return. I see the article returning books. That's relevant, so I'll click it. And here are those instructions on how to return a book early. Now, sometimes you're going to have a more complicated question. You'll have a deeper issue. Maybe you've had trouble downloading your book and you need help from a real life person. That's when you could come down to ask our support team. And this is going to connect you with an Overdrive technical support specialist via email. And they can help you with any of your problems, questions, and they can pass along ideas to our developers if you have an idea about the app. And that wraps up all of our need to know information about Libby. So how to function day to day within the app. I'm going to hand things back over to Joe here, and he's going to get us into some next steps.
Thanks, Marissa, and thank you all so much for joining us today. As Marissa said, we do still have some time left together, and I wanted to remind y'all, ask us questions. You can even ask questions anonymously if there's something you'd like to see, just something you want clarified, or something that you think we might have missed. Send that through the Q&A anytime now until we end. We'll probably go a little longer than 11, but not too much longer than that. So we'll make sure all of your questions are answered. I am going to get us started with our mini quiz here. We've got 4 questions to test what you learned. We want to see what you took away from today. And then just, of course, that reminder for tomorrow, we'll be hosting our deep dive session where we look at 4 of our favorite tips and tricks within Libby. I'm just going to send it through the chat again. If you haven't registered, register to attend live, or if you can't attend live but you'd like the recording, use that link to sign up. Just like you're going to get an email tomorrow with the recording for today's video, the same thing will happen for tomorrow's. It will come through on Wednesday. So it doesn't matter if you can't make it live. If you'd like to learn those tips and tricks in your own time, you can sign up to receive the recording. Excuse me. It is a fun allergy season here in Cleveland, Ohio. All right, so while y'all are thinking over some questions you want to ask us and sending those through the Q&A, I'm going to get our mini quiz started. So the questions will appear on your screen automatically. They are completely anonymous. Just give it your best answer. If you don't know, feel free to guess or choose the unsure option. For question number 1, in the navigation bar, what do you tap to browse your library's collection? So the magnifying glass, library, menu, stack of books, or clock. Keyword here is browse. And I'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so when you want to browse your library's collection, you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you just want to find your next great read. You are going to tap on that library building. You're going to go to the library. This will take you to the digital collection page. You can use the filters up at the top to help narrow your search. You could dive into one of the guides your library has created to find what you're looking for there as well. Or you could hop into any of these different curated lists. So this is just like those different end caps and displays that librarians put together with recommendations for titles like new mystery thrillers or beach reads. When you know exactly what you want, you know the title, author, series name, name of a magazine, tap on the magnifying glass, you can type that in and it will take you to those results. For question number 2, we're still going to be in the navigation bar. What do you tap to find your current loans and holds? So same answers, magnifying glass, library, menu, stack of books, or clock. So where do those things you're currently borrowing or currently on the hold list for live? And I'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, excellent work, everyone. So your current loans and holds live on your shelf. To get there, we tap on that stack of books icon. And from here, you can see everything you're currently borrowing. You can use the filters to look at just your loans or just your holds. We'll talk about tags in that deep dive session tomorrow. But yeah, everything you have will appear right there on the shelf. If you have a book that's ready to borrow, it'll actually appear up at the top of your shelf so you can borrow it right away. All right, let's dive into an ebook. What are the 3 ways you can customize your ebook's appearance? Select all that apply. You can change the text scale or the size of the font, the lighting or the background color of the page, the book design or the font of the book, or the language of the book. Three correct answers out of 4. Let's see what you can adjust in an ebook setting. And I'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so when you want to customize your ebook's appearance, you're going to tap in the center of the screen when you're in the ebook and tap on that A icon to open your appearance menus. You'll start with, you can adjust the text scale or that size of the font. Then you can adjust the lighting or what color the background of the page is. Bright is the default. And then last, you can change the book design or the font the book is written in. So we've got 5 pre-made fonts that include the default from the publisher and our open dyslexic font, but there's also a custom option where you can get really granular. But I love this question because while you can change the font, you can't change the language. So just like you have to decide if you want an ebook or an audiobook experience, you also have to decide if you want to read that book in a different language. Many libraries offer titles in a variety of languages, and Marissa has some great tips that she'll be showing off tomorrow on how you can make sure you're only seeing the books that you want to read. Then I'm just going to do our last question here. How can you visually tell if a title is an audiobook while browsing? So it has a smaller jacket cover, it has a headphone icon, there's a runtime under the jacket cover, or all of the above. And I'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, y'all nailed that one. 100% correct. Excellent work, everyone. So as you can see on the screen, when you are looking at 2 of the same book, the audiobook version is going to have that square jacket cover with the runtime and headphone icon underneath, whereas the traditional ebook version is going to be a rectangle looking like a normal book. So great work, everyone. Just wanted to make sure to remind y'all of that one as well. So if you only want to read or you only want to listen, you're looking at and getting the right things. Now I'm going to hand it back over to Marissa to get us started on Q&A. I'm looking, do we need to reconnect your iPad or are we good with just voice for now? Perfect, you are all set to go.
Yeah, we have a couple good questions here. While my iPad is collecting, the first question I'm going to answer is, when a patron has a Kindle, how do they access the Libby app? Do they have to use another device, or do Kindles have apps? Okay, so this answer is like a 3-parter, essentially. So there's one type of Kindle that has apps. That's the Kindle Fire. You cannot download Libby on a Kindle Fire through the Kindle store, but our developers are currently working on a solution that should be rolling out in the next several weeks, where we can have Libby go onto a Kindle Fire. So stay tuned for that. I don't have all of the details yet. It isn't officially ready, but there is a solution in the works. Outside of the Kindle Fire, for devices like Kindle Paperwhites or like, their original Kindles, that is going to require a second device, whether it's a phone, a tablet, or a computer. And only ebooks can be delivered to those Kindle devices. So you'll have to either download Libby on your phone, tablet, or use libbyapp.com. And then when you borrow ebooks, you can use that Kindle process that I pointed out earlier in the presentation to deliver ebooks to a Kindle. Now, it works out that you still have to download Libby on another device, because if you want to read audio or listen to audiobooks or read magazines, you'll have Libby on that other device to do so. The second question that I have here is a really good one as well. If I search for a title, will Libby only show a particular network, for example, CW Mars, or will it search all 8 networks in my list? So if you go over to search, and let's say I'm looking for Becoming by Michelle Obama. I'm going to type in Becoming, and I'm going to search for it. This search right now is only showing me Becoming in my collection that I'm currently browsing. However, I see the audiobook here. I'm going to come up to this library card with the plus sign next to it. Sometimes this will look like a calendar instead. And the difference there is that if it's a plus sign with the library card, that means it currently doesn't have a waiting list. If it's a calendar, that means there currently is one. Either of those icons you can tap on, and you'll see all of your library's collections. So in your example, you'll have 8 libraries showing up instead of 4. And you can see how many copies of the book is available at each of your libraries. So you can compare wait lists. All of these libraries here have it available, but sometimes you'll see only one has it available. The others all have holds lists. So that is how you can search across your libraries. Now, one thing I want to point out is if you go into your search and you type in your keyword or your title and you search and it's not showing up in that particular library, you will have to go to your next library to search it. So the book's going to have to show up for you to be able to tap on that icon I was talking about. So you can switch between libraries right here where it has this little library card. Let's say instead I want to search through C.W. Mars. And then you'll come back up here and type in that keyword and search again. So you'll have to find a collection that has the book first, and then you'll see that icon. And you'll actually see that, just a little note there, you'll see that icon everywhere within Libby. So you'll also see it when you're browsing your library, for example, and you want to pop into one of the curated collections. Let's say this was on hold and you wanted to find a library that didn't have it on hold, that same icon shows up there and you're able to search across your libraries that way. Really, really good question, especially in Massachusetts with those 8 collections.
Right, especially where we're visiting today. But 2 very, very good questions to kind of wrap up with. We will give you a few more moments here. We'll give you another minute or 2. If you're typing a question, finish typing it out for us. We want to make sure we get all of those questions answered before we say goodbye for today. But just a couple reminders, please fill out our survey when we end the webinar here in just a moment. It will pop up on your web browser automatically. Let us know what you thought of today's session and how we can improve. Remember, we've already sent out the link, but if you want to register for our deep dive session, that is happening tomorrow at the same time. If you can't attend live, you can register to still receive that recording via email. And then look out for that email tomorrow that comes from Zoom that includes the recording for today's full session, along with our Getting Started with Libby PDF. So if there's something you'd like to see just quickly, like how to turn off and on your labeled icons at the bottom of the screen in the navigation bar, super helpful to just be able to pop into something like that. And My Digital Library is our demo library. Right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today for our Getting Started session of the Learning Libby with the Experts webinar series. We hope you had a wonderful time today. We thank you so much for joining us, and we hope we'll see some of you again tomorrow for our tips and tricks. So thank you all so much for your time today, and of course, happy reading.
Happy reading.